It's time for Recipe of the Day. Raise your hand if you love zucchini and summer squash. Both of my hands are up. I love them. Sadly, nobody in my household loves them. My parents don't either, or my brother. Like, even growing up, nobody loved them. I don't know what the deal is with that, but I know that I love them. And so I make them all the time, especially when I'm on my own. And if I'm on my own, one of my favorite ways to cook them is in the air fryer. So when I have zucchini and summer squash is also called yellow squash. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, it's those yellow guys who look just like zucchini, but yellow, right? They're usually sold beside each other at the grocery store. So when I have them, I prefer them to not be too mushy in the middle. I know I've had it in restaurants many times where it's like super soft, almost like how it ends up in like a ratatouille or something, right? Stewed zucchini. I don't like that. I like them to have some texture. And you'll remember I've told you before that one of my favorite ways to cook them is actually to cook them whole so that they get darkened on the outside, like under the broiler or on the grill. The skin gets dark, but the inside is still just a little al dente right in the middle. That is what I like best. But you know what? I was in a cooking competition once and I made my zucchini on the grill and they were a little bit al dente in the middle. And one of the judges came over after and told me I'd lost points for that. So I'm assuming not everybody likes it. That's just me. So it's just good for you to know that though about how I like my zucchini preferences, because this recipe is kind of similar. For this recipe, we're slicing them first, but they're not going to be like soft in the middle. They're still going to have just a little bit of texture. And before I get into this, I just want to make sure that we're clear here. Just because these are being done in the air fryer does not mean that they're going to get crispy. I have a comment on one of these recipes over on the Cookful where somebody said they cooked them and they never got crispy. And I'm guessing that they're thinking that because it's air fried food, that's like deep fried food, and it should get like a crisp coating. Unfortunately, zucchini and summer squash are never going to get crispy. They have too much water inside. If you want something that has some crunch on it, I do have an air fryer southern yellow squash recipe where you're breading it and then the breading gets a bit of a crunch to it. You see what I mean? These are going to have more the texture of like a sauteed vegetable, not so much like a fried crispy vegetable, okay? So you're going to get your air fryer heating to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you'll trim the ends off of your zucchini or yellow squash. And we're doing 2 small to medium squash here. And when I say that, I mean grocery store small to medium, not the small to medium garden ones. I know they could get massive in the garden. I'm talking about 6 to 7 inches long with like a 2.5 inch diameter. Now you probably can get more than 2 of those into your air fryer, but if you want them to brown nicely, that's kind of the limit, is 2 of those small to medium zucchini, trimming the ends off, and then you're going to cut them in half lengthwise, end to end, and then slice each of those halves into 3/4 inch slices, like little half moons of zucchini or summer squash. Then put those into a medium-sized bowl and add 2 teaspoons of olive oil, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper. Toss that around. Now, you might be wondering if you could have just done that in the basket of the air fryer. The answer is sort of. You totally could. You could just put the squash right into the air fryer with the olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then toss that around. But I find that often some of the olive oil and seasonings kind of drips down through the basket into the bottom and doesn't stick to the zucchini very well. I really want it to all get coated. So if I measure that all into the bowl with the zucchini and then give it a good toss around, then I know that every little bit of the zucchini is coated. And then when I put it into the basket, if some drips off at that point, a little bit here and there is fine, because most of all the outsides of all those pieces do have the oil and the seasoning. Do you see what I mean? Now, I have complained to you before that people on social media, on Instagram and TikTok, complain that I don't use other seasonings. They say salt and pepper is not seasoning. I really like to keep things basic and let the flavors of the ingredients shine, so the zucchini is going to taste like zucchini with a little salt and pepper. Also, if I'm having this as a side dish with something else, I want the other things to like mix and go well together. And so then I might change what I want on the zucchini. For instance, if I was having this with some chicken parmigiana, maybe I would do some red pepper flakes or some oregano on here, maybe a little garlic. So you could totally go in that direction, but I probably wouldn't put like za'atar on here then. You see what I mean? So I like to have the basics for you here, the amount of vegetable, the amount of oil, how much salt and pepper you need. And then if you want to add something else, change it up. If I'm in the mood to change it up when I'm making this too, we can all do that as long as we have these basics. Does that make sense? And yeah, if you want to see those complaints, head over to TikTok or Instagram, look for Cook the Story. And every now and then you'll see a whole little conversation in the comments comments between people complaining that I haven't seasoned the food with anything but salt and pepper. Oh well, that's what social media is for, right? Random, unimportant controversy. So continuing with this recipe, so you toss that all up in the bowl and then you transfer it to the air fryer basket, give it a toss and try to arrange them in like a single layer as much as possible. I like to use some silicone coated tongs for that. I have tons of pairs of that. My mom could not believe how many pairs of tongs I had when she came over, and I'm like, it's because I use the air fryer a lot and the silicone tongs work so good in there, you know? So get those tongs, move things around so they're kind of in as much of a single layer as possible, and then you're cooking them for 5 minutes. That was at 400, and after 5 minutes, give a little check to see if they've browned and are slightly softened in the middle. I find they usually need another couple of minutes, so it's probably going to be another 2 to 3 minutes after that. If you like yours even softer than I do, though, like that judge from that cooking competition, go ahead and leave them in for a little bit longer. They're not going to burn. They're just going to brown a little bit more and get a little bit softer. They are not going to get any crispier, though. Don't forget about that. And that is it. You just transfer them to your plate and dig in. Don't share with anybody, at least not anybody in my house, because nobody likes them other than me. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is June 9th of 2025. And if you love my recipes and all of my cooking ideas, make sure you're following me on social media. I'm Cook the Story everywhere that I play out in that world. That is Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Pinterest for sure. Find me over there, Cook the Story. I have tons of delicious recipes shared over there all the time. Videos, pictures, reviews. You will be inspired over there all the time. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast recipe of the day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.